Francisco Lázaro, the marathon in the heat. On July 14, 1912, Stockholm hosted the Summer Olympic Marathon under scorching conditions. The temperature reached nearly 32 degrees Celsius, unusually high for Sweden. The race stretched over 40 kilometers on dusty roads with minimal medical support, very different from modern marathon standards. Among the runners was 24-year-old Portuguese athlete Francisco Lázaro. He was a carpenter by profession and one of Portugal's best long-distance runners. He had already won 3 national marathon championships and carried the honor of being Portugal's flag bearer at their first participation in the modern Olympic Games. Lázaro was determined to make history for his country. Before the race, he reportedly said, "Either I win or I die." It was likely meant as a dramatic expression of ambition. Tragically, it became prophetic. In preparation for the race, Lázaro coated much of his body with wax. At the time, some athletes believed wax could prevent sunburn and reduce friction. However, covering the skin blocked the body's ability to sweat effectively. Sweating is essential for cooling down during extreme heat. As the marathon progressed, runners began struggling under the relentless sun. Around the 30-kilometer mark, Lázaro collapsed. His body temperature had risen to dangerous levels, later recorded at approximately 41 degrees Celsius. Medical teams attempted to revive him, but treatment options were limited in 1912. He was taken to a hospital but died the following morning from heat stroke. Francisco Lázaro became the first athlete to die during Olympic competition in the modern era. His death shocked the international community. A memorial service in Stockholm's Olympic Stadium drew more than 20,000 mourners. Donations were collected to support his widow. His tragedy led to greater awareness about hydration, temperature monitoring, and athlete safety in endurance events. Over time, marathons introduced water stations, medical checkpoints, and stricter race day protocols in hot weather. Lázaro's story remains a powerful reminder of how little was understood about sports science in the early 20th century, and how ambition without proper knowledge can carry grave consequences. 2. Knud Enemark Jensen, a turning point in anti-doping. On August 26, 1960, the Summer Olympics in Rome were underway. The men's 100-kilometer team time trial cycling event took place under extreme heat with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. 23-year-old Danish cyclist Knud Enemark Jensen was part of his national team. He had achieved success in Nordic competitions and was considered a promising athlete. The Olympic Games were a major opportunity for him and his teammates. The heat was relentless. One of Jensen's teammates had already dropped out due to sunstroke. But the rules required teams to finish together to qualify for a result. Jensen continued riding, determined not to let his country down. As the race progressed, he began showing signs of severe exhaustion. Witnesses later reported that he appeared disoriented. At one point, he fell from his bicycle. He managed to get back up, but shortly afterward he collapsed again, this time striking his head on the pavement. He was transported to a medical tent and later to a hospital, but he never regained consciousness. He died later that day. The official cause of death was listed as heat stroke combined with a skull fracture from the fall. However, investigations revealed another troubling detail. A Danish team trainer admitted that riders had been given a substance called Ronicol, a vasodilator intended to improve blood circulation. There were also rumors of amphetamine use, although this was never conclusively proven. Jensen's death became a catalyst for change in international sport. Concerns about performance-enhancing substances grew rapidly. The International Olympic Committee began developing formal anti-doping regulations. By the 1968 Winter Olympics in Grenoble and the Summer Games in Mexico City, official drug testing was introduced. Knud Enemark Jensen's passing marked a turning point. It exposed the hidden pressures athletes faced and initiated reforms that continue to shape Olympic competition today. 3. Sergei Chalibashvili, the dive that went wrong. In July 1983, the World University Games were being held in Edmonton, Canada. Although not the Olympic Games themselves, the Universiade is an international multi-sport event that often features future Olympic stars. The swimming and diving competitions were drawing strong attention, and among the competitors was 21-year-old Soviet diver Sergei Chalibashvili. Chalibashvili was considered one of the brightest young talents from Soviet Georgia. He had already earned medals at European youth competitions and had built a reputation for attempting technically demanding dives. Coaches described him as fearless, someone who wanted to push the limits of difficulty. On that day, he prepared for a reverse 3 somersault in the tuck position from the 10-meter platform, a dive that had only recently been approved for international competition. It was complex and risky. Timing, rotation speed, and spatial awareness had to be perfect. A slight miscalculation could mean missing the water entirely. As he stepped onto the platform, the arena was quiet. Divers trained for years to reach that height with confidence. He launched into the air with power and rotation. For a brief moment, everything looked routine. Then, during the second rotation, something went wrong. He misjudged the distance between his body and the platform. Instead of clearing it safely, the back of his head struck the edge of the board with tremendous force. The sound echoed across the venue. Spectators gasped. Some competitors turned away instantly. Among those present was future Olympic champion Greg Louganis, who later described the scene as deeply disturbing. Blood stained the water as Chalibashvili fell into the pool. Lifeguards and medical teams reacted immediately, pulling him from the water and beginning emergency treatment. He was transported to University Hospital in Edmonton, where doctors fought to stabilize him. The diagnosis was severe cranial trauma, a traumatic brain injury caused by the impact with the platform. He fell into a coma. For days, machines kept him alive while doctors monitored any sign of improvement. Teammates, coaches, and officials waited anxiously, but he never regained consciousness. On July 16, 1983, Sergei Chalibashvili died from his injuries. His passing stunned the international diving community. Diving had always been viewed as a graceful and controlled sport, but this incident revealed the razor-thin margin between perfection and disaster. Following the tragedy, diving authorities reviewed safety procedures, coaching methods, and platform design. Greater emphasis was placed on technique validation before allowing athletes to perform newly approved high-difficulty dives in major competition. Chalibashvili's death remains one of the rare instances of a fatal accident in international aquatic sport during competition. His story underscores the immense physical precision required in elite diving, where athletes rotate through the air at high speed, trusting that every calculation will align. 4. Ulrike Maier, the downhill that never ended. On January 29, 1994, just weeks before the Lillehammer Winter Olympics, the world of alpine skiing was focused on the Kandahar course in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany. It was one of the fastest and most demanding downhill tracks in Europe. The snow was compact, the air was freezing, and speeds were expected to exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Among the competitors was Ulrike Maier, a 26-year-old Austrian skiing star. She was not an unknown athlete. Maier had already won 2 gold medals at the Alpine World Championships in 1989 and 5 World Cup races. In Austria, a country passionate about skiing, she was a household name. But 1994 was supposed to be her final season. She had spoken publicly about retiring from competitive skiing to spend more time with her young daughter Melanie. She had already endured years of intense travel, brutal training schedules, and previous crashes. This race was simply another step toward finishing her career on her own terms. At 1:58 p.m., wearing bib number 32, Maier pushed off from the start gate. Her run began smoothly. She navigated the steep turns with control and rhythm. Spectators lining the course cheered as she approached the final stretch. Then, just seconds before the finish line, everything changed. Traveling at around 105 kilometers per hour, Maier's right ski caught an edge in a slightly softer patch of snow. In downhill skiing, that tiny miscalculation at high speed can be fatal. She lost balance instantly. Her body twisted violently before slamming into the slope. She slid off course and struck a timing post. The impact was devastating. The crash caused severe cervical spine injuries, damaging her spinal cord and major arteries in her neck. Medical teams reached her within moments and airlifted her to a nearby hospital, but the injuries were beyond recovery. She was later declared brain dead. Millions of viewers had witnessed the fall on live television. The shock was immediate. Skiing, a sport already known for its dangers, suddenly felt far more fragile. Investigations followed. Early reports suggested the wooden timing post might have contributed to the severity of the crash. Legal action was discussed, and safety standards came under intense scrutiny. Later findings indicated that the snow conditions and speed were the main factors, and negligence charges were dismissed. However, her death forced serious changes in alpine skiing. Safety nets were improved. Course markings were redesigned using blue dye lines instead of physical brush markers. Helmets and protective gear were further developed to better absorb high-speed impacts. Ulrike Maier remains the only female alpine skier to die in a World Cup race. Her legacy is not just about medals. It is a reminder of the risks athletes accept every time they stand at the start line. 5. Bauman Golbarnasad, a Paralympic hero lost. On September 17, 2016, during the Rio Paralympic Games, the men's C4-C5 road cycling race was underway along the coastal roads of Pontal, Brazil. The course was challenging, featuring steep descents and sharp turns that tested even the most experienced cyclists. Among the competitors was 48-year-old Iranian cyclist Bauman Golbarnasad. Golbarnasad's journey to the Paralympics was extraordinary. As a young man, he lost his left leg to a landmine during the Iran-Iraq War. Many would have retreated from athletic ambition after such trauma, but he chose a different path. He first became involved in wrestling and later powerlifting, earning multiple medals in international competitions. After a shoulder injury forced him to leave weightlifting, he transitioned to cycling in his late 30s. It was a remarkable reinvention, proving his resilience and adaptability. He qualified for the 2012 London Paralympics and returned again in 2016 to represent Iran. At 48, he was one of the older competitors in his category, but experience and determination defined his racing style. During the Rio race, Golbarnasad was descending a steep section of the course when he lost control of his bicycle. The descent required precise braking and balance. Witnesses described the crash as sudden and violent. He struck his head against a curb or roadside obstacle. Medical teams reached him quickly and transported him by ambulance to a nearby hospital. On the way, he suffered cardiac arrest. Despite emergency efforts, he could not be revived. Bauman Golbarnasad became the first athlete in Paralympic history to die during competition. The impact of his death was immediate. Flags in the Paralympic village were lowered to half-staff. A moment of silence was observed before several events. Athletes from around the world expressed shock and sympathy. Iran's sitting volleyball team later dedicated their gold medal victory to his memory. International Paralympic Committee President Sir Philip Craven called the news heartbreaking, and tributes poured in from athletes and officials worldwide. Golbarnasad's life represented perseverance. After losing his leg in war, he rebuilt himself through sport. He overcame personal hardships, including the loss of his first wife to illness, while raising his son and continuing to train. His passing led to further discussions about course safety and road cycling events, especially in high-speed downhill sections. Protective measures and risk assessments were reviewed to reduce the chances of similar accidents. His story is not defined solely by tragedy. It is also defined by courage, the courage to compete, to adapt, and to stand on the world stage despite life-altering obstacles. The Olympic and Paralympic Games symbolize the highest ideals of sport. They bring nations together, inspire generations, and showcase extraordinary human ability. But these 5 tragedies remind us that elite competition carries real risk. Athletes train for years to push their bodies beyond normal limits. They accept danger in pursuit of excellence. And sometimes, despite preparation and safeguards, the unexpected happens. From the icy slopes of Germany to the scorching roads of Rome, from a diving platform in Canada to a marathon under the Swedish sun, and a Paralympic course in Brazil, each story changed the world of sport in lasting ways. Behind every medal ceremony is a human being, with family, dreams, and a future beyond competition. Remembering these athletes is not about focusing on tragedy. It is about honoring their dedication and acknowledging the responsibility to make sport safer for those who follow. If you found this video informative and meaningful, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming stories from the world of sports history. Leave a comment below and let us know which Olympic moment impacted you the most. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.